Hello, and welcome back to the Nonprofit Spotlight. I'm your host, Mike Gutzler, and I'm excited today to welcome Kristyn Peck to the podcast. Kristyn is the Executive Director at Lutheran Social Services of the National Capital Area. Kristyn, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thanks so much for welcoming me. I'm doing well. Nice to see you, Pastor Mike.
Yeah. Can you just tell us a little bit about who you are, your background, and LSS and its scope of work that you do in the area?
Sure. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Lutheran Social Services of the National Capital Area. And we are a century old organization that's been serving the greater DC metro area. We do so through 9 offices in Maryland, DC, and Northern Virginia. And we provide comprehensive human services. We provide case management, mental health, legal services, workforce development, and foster care. And we serve those in need. We've also welcomed refugees and asylum seekers in recent years and helped folks who are rebuilding their lives in our neighborhoods do so in their local communities. And we don't do that alone. We do that alongside congregations, community groups, and multi-faith coalitions to build welcoming communities.
Wow, that's a huge area and a lot of services that you provide. Can you say a little bit more about how those services are delivered, or how do people interact with you all or get receive those services? How does that happen?
Yeah, that's been changing in recent months. And so, traditionally we would serve folks who would arrive through the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program, who arrived with a status as a refugee or with another type of status that made them eligible. For example, many Afghans who arrived in recent years following the seizure of Kabul by the Taliban arrived with a status called humanitarian parole. And that was used to get them quickly out of Afghanistan and safely to the United States. And then once they arrive through that program, they are referred to us, and we do everything from picking folks up at the airport to taking them to the first home that they have here in the United States. We've in advance set up that home um, with everything that the family might need and made sure that there's culturally appropriate food in the refrigerator. And then we provide support as they transition to their new communities. That's changed in recent months as the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program has been paused, and our agreements with the Department of State to do that work have been suspended. We received a stop work order in January. However, our services still continue. We have other programs through which we can serve folks who have arrived recently in the area, and they can walk in our doors and receive those services. And we have referral pathways through other local organizations. And we really are here to help people, rebuild their lives, find work, and transition to their new communities. And we provide things also like ESL and financial literacy courses and cultural orientation to really help our new neighbors in their transition and feeling more included in their local community.
Yeah. And so you said things have changed slightly. So how are you dealing with that change, or how does your focus, because you do so many different services, like how does a new priority come up, or how do you adjust to those changes that I would assume were kind of unexpected?
Yeah, it's a good question. We've Many of the changes in recent months have limited access to federal programs for people who've been forcibly displaced and need that access to protection through the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program. And that program has been around for 45 years. It was signed into effect in 1980 with the U.S. Refugee Act by President Carter, and it was celebrated in both Republican and Democratic administrations. Actually, the Reagan administration admitted the most refugees. And now that that program is paused, we have to be creative. We aren't able to serve people arriving through that program, but there are plenty of people in our communities who need our help and who are already here. And we've also seen some Afghans with special immigrant visa status, Afghans who assisted U.S. missions in Afghanistan and therefore their lives are at risk, schedule their own travel and arrive on their own. And so they also are in need of support. But we are really looking at other ways that we can support our community. We've been so lucky to have such a strong network of faith-based communities and congregations that believe in the work of welcome, and that work alongside us to help newcomers acclimate to their new communities. And so a lot of our work is also includes engaging with congregations and synagogues and mosques and talking to them about how they too can be a place of welcome and how they can walk alongside a family who may need some more support, helping practice English, maybe helping drive them to appointments, maybe help them with interview practice or setting up a LinkedIn profile. And these are all services we're able to provide, and we're able to do more and really maximize our reach by leveraging our community.
Yeah, and obviously transitioning into a new country, a new language, uh, is can be incredibly difficult and challenging, and just reorienting yourself to a new community, a new culture, is a lot. And so, I appreciate what you said in that. You work with a bunch of different denominations or religions, even. So, even though you have Lutheran as an identity, it sounds like you work with a variety of different peoples and entities, and I assume state and local governments. Is that true?
That's right. We really believe in the work of welcome, welcoming the stranger, being good neighbors. That transcends religions, and all the major religions have a call to welcome the stranger, and we have this really broad approach in how we do this work. And we serve people from more than 48 countries, and we want our staff and our community members who support our new neighbors to reflect that. So we really value the diversity we have in our team and within our community of support. And you're right, when people first arrive to the US after they've fled their home, they often arrive with nothing but the clothes they have on their backs. They've left everyone they know and everything they have behind. And so we really are there as soon as they arrive to help them in their journey to rebuild their lives. And that can be everything from enrolling their children in school, making sure the family has all of the immunizations that they need, ensuring that the family knows how to access community resources. And it's really important to engage the local community, because these are the folks that our new neighbors are going to reach out to and are going to be their community and their friends long term. So we know that after our services end, that our new neighbors are members of the community, and we really try and foster those relationships and those connections.
No, that's really beautifully said. I think it's easy for anybody to just kind of take for granted people move to the neighborhood and they have what they need to be here in this country or to be a part of the community, but that's not always the case, especially when they're new to this country. So you all provide this element and fabric to our neighborhoods that we probably don't even see on a regular basis.
Yeah, and we find that um, refugees bring so much to our local communities, and although they benefit from having some initial support when they first arrive, before long, they are thriving members of our communities. We have this great partnership with George Mason University, for example, to run a refugee entrepreneur program called SOAR. And we have a cohort of about 40 refugees a year who maybe were business owners back in their home countries, or have that acumen and who are interested in launching businesses once they're here. And it's really exciting to see people go through the program and end the program and being able to launch their own business. And I think it's that richness and that diversity that really makes our community such a beautiful community. Um, And, what we find is when folks are arriving, even when they're new to the country and are having to rebuild their lives, they're really motivated to give back. So many people we've welcomed have actually come to work for us. So the majority of my team at LSSNCA has lived experience as a forcibly displaced person, as someone who has arrived as a refugee or through another status, and they want to be that welcoming face um, that is the first person that others see when they arrive here. They want to be able to share what their experience was like, and to make sure that folks who are arriving know that they can do it, and that they can care for their families, and that they can make a life here, a good life here.
Yeah, that just speaks to the importance of the diversity of your staff, and to be able to have a familiar face or a familiar tongue of language, so that they have that sense of comfort, not only working with a new person that they're meeting with your entity, but to be able to be a relatable presence once they're here. That's fantastic. And the GMU, George Mason program, that sounds wonderful. Are there other programs like that that you're really excited about right now?
Yeah, we really value partnerships. So we partner with, higher education and faith-based communities and different organizations across the DC metro area to best serve our new neighbors. Another example of a partnership, we work with a lot of local law firms to provide pro bono services to folks who need to adjust their status, or ensure that they're in compliance with the immigration requirements. And so we have a team on staff of attorneys, but to be able to maximize the work that they do, they'll host, for example, an all-day pro se asylum clinic, or pro se employment authorization document clinic, and they will work with other law firms, and they'll spend a full day. We'll have 50 clients in a room. We'll have translators, and then at the end of the day, we'll have the ability to finalize those applications, which can be quite lengthy and cumbersome. And
Yeah.
so it's helpful to have that legal support. That's one of the examples. And another thing we do with volunteers is a group called the Tea Club. And the Tea Club helps mostly Afghan women adjust to a new community. The idea was that often when we were seeing Afghan allies a lot arrive to the area, the men had experience working for the U.S. military or military contractors, but often culturally the women would stay at home and would work from the home, and so when they arrived to the DC metro area, there was a longer runway for Afghan women to speak English and to be acclimated to the U.S. workforce. Their spouses, in many cases, had already worked in a U.S. workforce in Afghanistan. And so we wanted to help bridge that gap. And we also wanted Afghan women to know that they weren't alone, and connect them with other women who had similar experiences, but also connect them with other women in the community for friendship. And so we have these groups called the Tea Club, where the Afghan women meet with other women from the community, and they practice English, and maybe they practice driving for their driver's test, and they learn about American culture, and that really helps them, acclimate to a new community, and become more confident in entering the workforce.
Wow. That sounds like it also takes a lot of volunteers to implement those programs. So hypothetically, like, let's say there's an attorney who's listening to this podcast and is interested in, be like, oh, that's something I could do. Or if there's other just general person who sounds like or is hearing this and sounds like something they'd want to do and wants to volunteer. How do you make that happen? Like, how would a new interested potential volunteer connect with you and your team?
Yeah, great question. We have a How to Help section on our website, lssnca.org, and we have a place where you can submit an interest form for being a volunteer. And you can list your interests and your skills, and then someone from our community engagement team would reach out. and talk to you about your interests and match you with an opportunity that meets the needs and your skill set or your interests. And there we go. We also have opportunities for volunteers to serve as mentors for youth, and also to work alongside our employment team. So helping people who are looking for work with interview practice, reviewing their resume, and doing things like setting up their LinkedIn profile, or maybe translating experience that they had in their own country, their home country, to a U.S. based resume. Many ways to get involved.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like you have a wide range and spectrum of opportunities for people to be engaged in the work that LSS does.
We sure do. Another one I'll mention is foster parenting. We have a program that serves unaccompanied children. So children who arrive to the U.S. without a caregiver and arrive alone, and who are seeking protection, humanitarian protection, or who arrive with that protection. So these are children who maybe have been abused, abandoned, or neglected in their home country, or maybe are fleeing war and persecution, or perhaps are victims of trafficking. And we place those children in safe and loving foster homes. And we're always looking for interested foster parents. We have more information about that on our website as well.
My gosh, yeah. And especially, some folks that are children that experience trauma in their home country and then coming here and being unaccompanied, that requires some care and love and support as well.
Yeah, that's right. These are children who've experienced trauma in their home country, and then often their journey to the U.S. is traumatic as well. And so having the stability of loving, stable caregivers is really important for their ability to heal from their trauma and to become successful adults, and to be able to find that stability within a foster family is really important. And we provide that on a short-term basis and a long-term basis. So some foster parents are interested in fostering youth who might have family here, and maybe they're only in their homes for a month while we look to identify safe family members for those children to reunify with. And some children we identify don't have family to reunify with. And so those would be longer term commitments and placements. And we have both options.
Great. Fantastic. In addition to these programs and acknowledging the fact that you said that things have changed recently in terms of your scope and mission, you do also provide a lot of hope for a lot of people, in addition to love and care. But as you look towards the future, and the work that you're doing, what are you hopeful for? What are you excited about? Or what maybe even a goal do you have as you look into the ways that LSS is going to be caring for the neighbor in the near future and long-term future, if you like?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of places to look for hope. One is, we just came out of a crisis for our organization. We had this stop work order in January, which required us to stop serving about 369 people that we'd welcomed in the previous 90 days. And that put us in crisis. These were people who, within a day had the network of support that had been promised pulled out from under them. But where there's room for hope is our community stepped up, and we put the call out to our community to say, there are 369 people who are really vulnerable right now, who are no longer eligible for these federally funded services that were that we had committed to. And our community stepped up and they helped pay rent for these new families. They, in many ways, served as case managers, because the stop work order required us to lay off the case managers to support these families. And so what I see is that this is a community that is generous, that is giving, that embraces newcomers, that wants to help, and that is really inspiring. And what also happened in the last 2 months, and in addition to that stop work order, we had almost 2 months where funds that we had already spent to serve children and families were frozen. And that caused an enormous operational challenge. The funds that we receive are cost reimbursable. So these were funds that we had already spent with the promise that they would be reimbursed that were held up. And it was about 10% of our annual budget. And so that also put us in crisis and made it really difficult to pay for rent, for example, for families who had just arrived. And combined with the stop work order, it created a challenge. But again, it's this community that stepped up and helped fill in the gaps until our funds were released. And most of them were released, which has really relieved us and allowed us to make good on our payments. But I think other areas for hope, I'm really, although I'm very concerned about the safety of many people who we've welcomed to the area in recent years, who in many cases, arrived with legal status or received that legal status. And now, in many cases, sometimes there are some policies that have made that status in question. So I'm very concerned about many people who are vulnerable. But what gives me hope is that what I see in our communities is not reflective of those policy changes. What I see in our communities is that this is a community that really believes in welcoming the stranger. They believe that our new neighbors are now a part of our community, and they want more. They want that more for our new community members. So that gives me hope. And then just when things get challenging, it forces us to be more creative. So my team has really been looking at how can we continue to serve, how can we continue to meet the needs of our community members, and if it's if we're losing this grant, what are other opportunities out there? And I think there are a lot of opportunities. We just need to be creative, and we need to be better partners. I think the more that we are partnering with other community-based organizations and communities of faith, I think together, it's always been local communities that have stood up and met the need, and in times of crisis have been able to fill those gaps.
Yeah, that's wonderfully said and powerful at the same time. Thank you. But with that said, it sounds like this may be an opportunity for people who want to step up and give to LSS, whether that's monetary gift or gift otherwise. So how do you receive gifts? How can someone make a contribution to the work that you do? And is there any physical items that you need at this time?
Yeah. So we always welcome financial gifts. They help us fill in gaps that are left through gaps in government funds. There's always more need than the funding we receive. And so we accept gifts on our website. Again, our website is lssnca.org. There is a donate button, and it will take you directly to the place where you can donate online. It will also direct you to our address if you prefer to mail a check. If you're interested in planned giving, there's an area where you can submit an inquiry and reach out to our development team who can talk you through that. We also have a resource center in Alexandria, Virginia. The resource center allows for a dignified shopping experience for community members. We have everything someone might need to set up their new home, except furniture. We don't have furniture yet, but we do have household items. We have bedding, we have kitchen items, we have baby items, we have non-perishable foods, and we have clothing and shoes, books for children, toys for children, blankets, household cleaning supplies. And so these are all things that we collect at our resource center. And that's also a really great volunteer opportunity. That it's the resource center is run by 3 staff. And if you come to see it, you would be so surprised, because we do so much out of that resource center every day in terms of having people come in and shop with dignity. Everything is free to them, of course. But the reason we're able to do so much is because we have so many volunteer groups come in and they'll help sort and itemize and display the donations. They'll help clients with shopping experiences. So that's another way to get involved. Volunteer at our resource center or provide in-kind donations, and we're always updating the list of what we need on our website. Foster parenting, again, that's another need we always have. And volunteering. Volunteering is also always a need. I'll say this, we put out a call for volunteers. We always have a call for volunteers, but we put out a special call earlier this year when we had that stop work order, and we have seen our volunteer interests increase threefold. So that's been really wonderful to see, just how much our community really wraps around their newest community members, and they understand that being forcibly displaced it's not a choice. It can happen to any of us, and that we're here for each other. We believe in a community that stands up for one another and helps people when they're in need.
Yeah. Your vision for what community really is and its ability to work together and for one another is beautiful. So as you think about LSS's work coming up, what are some things that are on your mind, or what are some things you'd like to have the general public or the listener of this podcast know about what you do and what's important?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have served this community since 1917, and we will continue to serve the community for another 100 years. And what inspired me to work for LSSNCA was looking at our history and seeing how we have continued to pivot and innovate, regardless of what's happening nationally, to meet the needs locally. And so whether that was serving families who were in need during the Great Depression, whether that was in the 90s, piloting the first summer camp for kids who were impacted by HIV/AIDS, whether that was responding to Operation Allies Welcome when the U.S. government began evacuating Afghan allies in 2021, and we went from serving 500 people a year to 500 people a month overnight. We put our mission first, and so we're not going to abandon our community or the people we've welcomed in recent years because there's been shifts in policies or funding. It just requires us to be more creative and to think differently about the how of what we do. And but the mission is unchanging. Our mission is enduring. Our mission is to serve people in need and create thriving communities, and to do that in and with community. And so, I think I want people to know that although some of the support has changed, and although some of the policies have made it more difficult for people in need and the people that we serve to access services, that we're going to find a way. We're going to find a way to serve people, and that we need your help. We need to do that together. And now is a time, more than any, this is the time to check in with our neighbors and see how they're doing, and to work together to find ways to help people who are the most in need, the most under-resourced in our communities.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Thank you. Kristyn, you are an incredible individual running an incredible organization that makes our community so much better than it already is. So on behalf of myself and my community and all the listeners, thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for everything and your team's work and the countless hours and the stressfulness that you're currently experiencing. Thank you so much again also for your valuable time. This is a gift that you've been able to share with us.
Thank you so much. We couldn't do it alone, so we are really grateful for you, Pastor Mike, and for Holy Trinity, and for really this greater community for making this such a great place to live.
Yeah. Well, we're doing it all together, and thank you for your leadership.